The presidential election took place almost 4 weeks ago. Half the country, including me, has been in mourning. But my grief is much bigger than the election. I wonder how our world has become so polarized. Regardless how we voted, don't we all want the same thing? Peace, security, happiness, etc. While we're fighting with each other, the world is falling apart. The sea level is rising. The storm is getting bigger. More people are going hungry. More wars are raging. Power abuse and corruption are spreading. It seems that the collapse due to greed and overconsumption is coming. My heart has been broken for a long, long time. And I wonder what I could say to inspire you. When things get tough, the easiest thing to do is to blame others for our pain and suffering. Or we look for someone else to solve our problems for us and save us. Our pain or suffering is the first noble truth of Buddhism called dukkha. Modern psychology indicates that under all the suffering is our fear. It includes fear of threat, such as losing what we have, changes that we don't want, or fear of the unknown. For fear pushes us into anger, despair, disappointment, even violence. For survival, we get trapped in the zero-sum game. To get our way, we divide the world into winners and losers. Right side, wrong side, strong, weak. We're willing to dominate or destroy others by any means necessary, including killing. This is the dark side of all of us. But I believe we're much better than this. I didn't go to seminary to become religious. I did it because I believe that at our highest level of humanity, we're capable of caring for others. We're loving, compassionate, kind, and generous at the depth of ourselves. And I want to help live this human spirit. I know this because whenever there's a disaster or during a traumatic situation, stranger comes out and helps strangers. But what happened to us? How do we get here? In an article I read, that neuroscientists point out that we have a trillion brain. It includes brainstem, limbic system, and prefrontal cortex. They each play important and very divergent role in how we react. Which of the three parts of the brain is in charge depends on the level of perceived threat. The brainstem, which is sometimes referred to as the reptilian brain, it is the prompt to flight, fight, or freeze response to dangers. It is most primitive area of the brain, focused on basic survival needs, such as food, shelter, reproduction, and safety. The limbic system, or mammalian brain, is associated with emotions and attachment. It gives meaning to our feelings and evaluates whether a situation feels safe. Then is the prefrontal cortex, unique to primates such as us humans, is the most evolved part of the brain. It is here that we create a sense of self, develop insights and empathy, and form moral judgment. This area enables us to pause before we act, reflect, and focus our attention. Ideally, the prefrontal cortex assimilates all the information it receives and responds by sending neuronal messages to other parts of the brain and the body. But when limbic system senses danger, it will override prefrontal cortex and send alarms to the entire system. These alarms influence how we feel, think, and act. When our prefrontal cortex is active and in charge, the brain can reflect, organize, be creative, think, and listen. Yet, when we become flooded, feel extreme threat, our reptilian brain hijack our thoughts, feelings, and behavior. In that state, we cannot access our thinking brain. We're unable to listen and learn. We cannot access anything. We shut down and become paralyzed. We are not receptive to new information. This affects our capacity for constructive exchange between two different people. The more we are afraid, the more we resort to our reptilian brain. The survival mode, where we get into either fight, flight, or freeze, we're less likely to be able to listen, to be curious, to inquire with genuine interest. Perhaps this is how the world is divided into bubbles. From there, we no longer communicate like mature human beings. Under threat, our fear is in overdrive. Fear leads to all kinds of behaviors that are reactionary. Judging, belittling, alienating, excluding, bullying, and even killing. Fear losing our way of life, fear losing power and control. Fear not only creates an enemy from outside, but also from within ourselves. We are being killed by our own pain, despair, and hatred. James Baldwin said, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will have to be forced to deal with their pain. Don Miguel Ruiz, author of the book called Four Agreements, wrote that there are two main sources of emotions, fear and love. The one that predominates everyday people is fear. We can say that normal kind of relationship in this world is based 95% on fear and only 5% on love. That's astonishing. But even, of course, this changes, depends on the people. But even when the percentages go to 60 fear and 40 love, we're still based on fear. Modern psychology seems to agree with this idea. Politicians are so good at using fear to get votes. Fear is easier to sell than love. The day after election, I went out for a walk. Noticed the sky was clear. The birds are singing, and the leaves on the tree are dancing in morning breeze. They remind me the universe is so much bigger than our individual selves. And it has its own law of cause and effect. We humans are part of this grand system. This is where love comes from. It reveals that at the highest level of human self, we're all capable of caring and loving one another because we are connected. We're not alone like the way we fear. But most days, it's hard to overcome fear and choose love. But we must. Our mutual existence depends on it. But you say, how? According to Shambhala Buddhist prophecy, there will come a time when the world is on the brink of annihilation due to the greed and corruption of monstrous humans. When almost all hope is lost, this is when we have to activate Shambhala warriors or spiritual warriors in ourselves. Any one of us can be a spiritual warrior. Despite dire circumstances, Shambhala warriors have two most powerful weapons. First one is compassion. The second one is insight. Compassion is comprised of integrity to see the full extent of pain in the world in order to act to heal it. Insight is the knowledge that all things are interconnected. It's compassion's cooling agent, we call it. Insight empowers us to recognize that we must balance our fighting with gratitude and self-care. Insights run cool, so must be balanced with compassion. Both compassion and insights are needed to dismantle weapons of those folks whose greed and corruption will destroy us. With compassion and insight, Shambhala warriors know that the weapon of the evil doer are mind-made, and thus can be mind-unmade. Their weapons are powerful fictions, lies, propagandas, stereotypes created by humans to control humans. By accessing and unraveling these institutional, cultural, religious-based, and political lies and harmful stereotypes, Shambhala warrior can and will dismantle them. This is done without violence or bloodshed, because peace is not achieved through war. Shambhala warriors are everywhere. They are you, they are me. All are needed. We are in the state of emergency. We need all hands on deck, hands of nature and hearts of love. In order to save the world, each of us need to fully awaken to our compassion and basic goodness. We need to be gentle to ourselves. Stop letting our fear and pain injure us, and make ourselves whole again before we can do good for others. To keep ourselves open and available, we need to utilize self-care as a resource fully. Then we can give ourselves to others. Get out of our reptilian brain and use our prefrontal cortex. We need to remember that as humans, we are at the higher level in the animal kingdom because of this part of our brain. We can function, think, reason, be curious, and keep our hearts open. To gain insight, we need to practice seeing the world clearly. To see the world clearly is to see the pain and suffering in everyone, especially people from a different bubble. When there is a storm outside or trauma, we tend to want to hug our children tighter. When the calamity happens, we need to hug everyone because we're all connected as parts of this universe. Additionally, as spiritual warrior, we need to reclaim our blessings and gifts. Our gifts are our calling and purpose. To define our work, we embody the finest human quality: compassion, generosity, and love. Part of our suffering is about our disappointment. After fighting so long for justice and equality, the world seems to be going backwards. Or after trying so hard, we have not seen any progress the way we expect. To anticipate or look for the desired outcome can also be driven by our ego. Our ego causes us suffering. After getting very tired of wallowing in my grief and despair, after also mindless eating and drinking, I'm reminded that to be a true warrior or change agent, we must do the work because it is our work to do. We are called to do it. We start from where we are and do what we can with what we got. It is our turn to serve. Stop worrying about if we made any difference. Not knowing can free us from attaching to the outcomes, praises, or reward. Not knowing is also a gift because it means we have set our ego free. As a warrior, our gift is to serve. An ancient Buddhist teacher always liked to say, "Stop whining and serve." Now let us sit silently for a moment and examine our blessings and gifts. When you recognize your gift, remember to cultivate them. Whatever your gift is, whatever works you can do for justice and equality, do it from love, not from fear or anger. Many, many social activists out there are burned out because they operate from anger. They don't last, right? We cannot change the world by persuasion or coercion. We can only show up fully with our gifts. Trust that our action will invite others to show up fully too. Our work can be very, very small. It's like returning one starfish back to the sea at a time. Imagine others are doing the same. In the book entitled May Cause Miracles, author Gabriel Bernstein asks, what am I choosing to bring to the world? The premise of her book is that we can create miraculous shift in all areas of our life by turning our fears into love. Here are some of the basic steps she suggested. Number one, the most important thing is to cultivate is the awareness of the underlying fear that we're hooked on. One of the best ways to do this is to observe ourselves. Number two, it is very difficult for most of us to simply be with our feelings. So we often try to escape, numb, or avoid them by turning to unhealthy coping mechanism. Take a deep breath. Use your frontal lobe to explore where all your feelings come from and what caused them. Number three, once you get to the heart of the issue, recognize that underlying fear is just an energy. You don't have to let it control you, your action, or your feeling. Number four, choose love. This is a conscious decision, moment by moment. Remember, to keep a stable mind and open heart, practice basic goodness. See clearly and act wisely. Remember, we're all connected and part of the universe. When in time of grief, we need to hug our loved ones tighter and lean on our community more often. We might not change the world, but we can create a smaller island of sanity. This may lead to bigger change. Having shared my thoughts with you, I'd like to re-emphasize that we Unitarian Universalist community just passed a resolution called Article 2, based on 6 shared values: justice, equity, generosity, pluralism, transformation, and interdependence. At the core of these shared values is our foundation of love. This is universal love, like that little chalice that burns in every one of us. During this holiday season, we'll be gathering with families. No doubt, unfinished family drama will show up. And if you have people you don't agree with, and you can hide, avoid, fight, or show them your gifts. Use your frontal lobe to practice compassion and curiosity and get acquainted with them. Choose to use the chalice of love within us, not fear, to guide us. Namaste. May it be so.